Hello, English learners. Welcome to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I'm so happy you've decided to spend this time with me today. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of an English conversation, maybe with a group of native speakers, and a curtain of fog suddenly descends upon your mind? One moment, you're following along, nodding, feeling like you're part of the group. The next, someone uses a word you've never heard before, or an idiom that sounds like complete nonsense. And just like that, you are lost. The conversation continues, laughter is shared, but you're stuck on that one incomprehensible point. A feeling of panic begins to bubble in your chest. Your heart beats a little faster. You have a question, a simple question that could clear the fog in an instant, but your voice gets caught in your throat. A chorus of fears sings in your head. What if my question sounds stupid? What if I interrupt the flow of the conversation? What if they realize I'm not as good at English as they think I am? What if they laugh at me? And so, you choose the path of least resistance. You stay quiet. You force a smile. You nod your head as if you understand completely. And you wait for the topic to change. The moment passes. The conversation moves on, leaving you behind in a silent world of confusion and frustration. You feel invisible and a little bit smaller than you did before. If this scenario strikes a chord with you, if it feels painfully familiar, I want to reach out through this recording and tell you with absolute certainty, you are not alone. This experience is practically a rite of passage for every language learner on the planet. But what if I told you that the tool you need to break free from this cycle of confusion and fear is not what you think it is? What if I told you that the secret to truly fluent, confident English is not about memorizing thousands of vocabulary words or achieving flawless grammar? The real key, the one that will accelerate your learning and transform your ability to connect with others, is simply this: being brave enough to ask questions. Today, we are going to find that key, polish it until it shines, and unlock a new way of learning English together. I promise you, if you stay with me, what you learn today has the power to change everything about your English learning journey. I want to share a story with you that illustrates this perfectly. It's about a former student of mine, a truly wonderful person we'll call Elena. Elena was from Italy, a brilliant architect with a passion for sustainable design and a spirit that was both warm and incredibly thoughtful. She was the model student in so many ways. Her homework was always immaculate. Her understanding of complex grammatical structures was impressive, and her written English was elegant and precise. On paper, she was a strong B1, well on her way to B2. But when she joined my advanced conversation group, something strange happened. Elena, the confident and articulate architect, vanished. In her place was a silent observer. She would sit at the table, her posture attentive, her eyes tracking every speaker, absorbing every detail. I could see the wheels turning in her mind. She understood the nuances of the discussions, the humor, the debates, but she never spoke unless she was directly addressed. And when I would gently prompt her, saying something like, "Elena, what's your perspective on that?" she would offer a single, perfectly polished sentence, and then retreat back into the safety of her silence. It was like watching a beautiful bird that was afraid to fly. I knew, and she later confirmed, that she was deeply frustrated. She was living behind a self-imposed wall of fear, a fear of making a mistake, a fear of her accent being too strong, a fear of not sounding as intelligent in English as she was in Italian. Her silence wasn't a sign of disinterest. It was a symptom of a paralyzing perfectionism. One rainy Tuesday evening, our conversation topic was the changing nature of work. Another student, a dynamic young man from South Korea named Kenji, who worked in tech, was talking about his company's new work-from-home policy. He was full of energy, describing the challenges and benefits. At one point, he said, the biggest hurdle was convincing the older managers. They were worried that if we weren't in the office, we'd all just be slacking off. But my boss, she's very forward-thinking. She told them we just need to circle the wagons and focus on our quarterly goals, and the results will speak for themselves. As he said this, I scanned the room. A few people nodded in understanding. But on Elena's face, I saw a look of profound confusion. Her brow was furrowed, her lips were slightly parted, and her eyes were fixed on Kenji. She understood circle, and she understood wagons. But the image of circling wagons in the context of a business meeting made absolutely no sense to her. This was her moment. My first instinct, as it often is for teachers, was to intervene, to rescue her. I could have easily said, to circle the wagons is an American idiom that means to unite as a group to defend yourselves against a common threat or to focus on a shared goal. But I stopped myself. I recognized this for what it was. A precious, unscripted opportunity for real learning, not just about an idiom, but about the courage to seek understanding. The silence after Kenji finished his point seemed to stretch on for an eternity. It grew heavy, almost uncomfortable. I could practically see the internal battle raging inside Elena's mind. To ask or not to ask? That was the question. I decided to give her a gentle nudge. "Elena," I said, my voice soft so as not to startle her. "It looked like you had a thought or a question for Kenji." She jumped slightly, her eyes darting towards me. For a split second, I saw that familiar flicker of fear, the impulse to retreat and say, "No, it's nothing." But then, something inside her shifted. She took a small, almost imperceptible breath, a tiny act of courage. She turned her gaze from me to Kenji, and in a voice that was quiet but clear, she asked, "I'm sorry, Kenji. I am not familiar with this expression. What does it mean, to circle the wagons?" The moment those words left her mouth, the entire dynamic of the room changed. It was like a spell had been broken. A window was thrown open, and a gust of fresh, clean air swept through the conversation. Kenji's face didn't register annoyance or impatience. It absolutely lit up. He beamed at her, genuinely thrilled. "That is an excellent question, Elena," he said with enthusiasm. He leaned forward, clearly excited to share a piece of his cultural knowledge. He explained that it was an old phrase from the days of the American West, when pioneers traveling in covered wagons would arrange them in a circle to defend against an attack. "So now," he explained, "it means we come together as a team, protect our project, and focus on our common goal, shutting out all the negative distractions." As he was explaining, something wonderful happened. Another student, Maria, who had been quietly listening, chimed in. "Ah, that makes so much sense. In my company, we have a similar idea, but we say, we must build a fortress." And then another student, Liam, added, "Wow, that's so interesting. I was confused too, but I was afraid to ask. Is that a very common American idiom?" The conversation blossomed. It evolved from a simple report on a company policy into a rich cross-cultural discussion about language, metaphors, and shared human experiences of teamwork and defense. It became more authentic, more engaging, and infinitely more memorable for everyone. And the spark that lit this beautiful fire was Elena's single, simple, brave question. That evening marked a profound turning point for her. She had stared her fear in the face and discovered it was just a shadow. She had learned, in a very practical way, that her question didn't make her seem foolish. It didn't invite ridicule or judgment. On the contrary, it sparked connection. It fueled learning for the entire group. It made the conversation better for everyone. From that day on, Elena began to unfurl like a spring flower. She started asking more questions. At first, they were small, cautious inquiries about vocabulary or pronunciation. "Excuse me, how do you pronounce that word?" Or, "Could you spell that for me, please?" But soon her questions grew bolder, more confident, and more complex. She began to challenge ideas respectfully, asking things like, "But have you considered the other side of that argument?" Or, "Can you provide a specific example to clarify that concept?" Her confidence didn't just grow, it soared. She was no longer a passive passenger in our conversations. She was an active, curious, and engaged co-pilot. She had finally realized that fluency isn't about having a perfect, mistake-free performance. It's about having the courage to connect. And connection always, always begins with curiosity. This is the transformation that I want for you, too. I want you to reconnect with the power of curiosity, a power that you once possessed in abundance. Think about how children learn their native language. Is a 4-year-old child ever embarrassed to ask why? Of course not. They are relentless, insatiable questioning machines. Why is the moon in the sky? Why do cats purr? Why can't I have ice cream for dinner? They bombard the adults in their lives with a constant stream of questions. Their brains are like super-absorbent sponges, and the fuel for that absorption is pure, unadulterated curiosity. They have absolutely no concept of a stupid question. To a child, every unknown is simply a door that hasn't been opened yet. They aren't afraid of what they don't know. They are excited and fascinated by it. As we transition into adulthood, and especially within the formal education system, we learn to build walls around this natural inquisitiveness. We become self-conscious. We start to associate not knowing with failure or weakness, a flaw that must be concealed at all costs. In the high-stakes context of learning a new language as an adult, this fear can become completely paralyzing. But I am here today to implore you, to urge you with every fiber of my being, to give yourself permission to become like a child again in your learning. You must embrace curiosity as your most trusted guide, your most effective and patient teacher. Every single time you interrupt a conversation to ask for clarification, you are not showing weakness. You are demonstrating incredible strength. You are taking active, conscious control of your own learning journey. You are sending a powerful signal to your brain that says, "Pay attention. This piece of information is important. I need to understand it on a deeper level." And in response, your brain will engage more fully. The new word, the new idiom, the new concept will be encoded into your long-term memory with far greater strength and clarity, because you didn't just passively hear it. You actively engaged with it. You wrestled with it. You questioned it. And by doing so, you made it your own. So, let's move from the why to the how. It's not enough for me to simply inspire you to be curious. I want to give you a comprehensive, practical toolkit, a set of powerful, polite, and effective phrases that you can write down, practice saying out loud, and have ready in your back pocket for any situation. Let's break these tools down into clear categories, making them easy to learn and remember. Category 1. Asking for repetition or a slower pace. This is the most fundamental and common need for any language learner. Someone is speaking too quickly. There's background noise, or you just zone out for a second and miss a crucial piece of information. Instead of panicking and pretending you understood, you can confidently use one of these phrases. For more formal situations, like a business meeting, a university lecture, or when talking to someone you don't know well, you'll want to be a bit more polite. You could say, "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating it?" This is a classic, polite, and universally understood phrase. Another great option is, "Pardon me, I missed the last part. Could you say it again, please?" This is excellent because it's specific. You're telling them you were following along but just missed the most recent bit. Or, if the issue is speed, you can be direct but courteous. "Could you speak a little more slowly, please? I want to make sure I understand you correctly." Notice the positive framing at the end. You're not criticizing their speed. You're emphasizing your desire to understand. Now, for more informal situations, like when you're talking with friends, classmates, or close colleagues, you can be much more relaxed. The simple phrase, "Sorry, what was that?" is probably the most common one you will hear and use. Another very informal and friendly option is, "Come again?" It's short, breezy, and effective. You could also say, "I missed that. One more time?" which is very clear and friendly. Or, if you have a good rapport with the person and want to be a bit playful, you can say with a smile, "Whoa, slow down there, Speedy. What did you say?" The key with this one is a warm, friendly tone. Let's practice this right now. Imagine your friend calls you and says excitedly, "Hey, I'm heading to the park. Do you want to grab a coffee and come along?" It all sounds like one long word. What do? You don't panic. You just say, "Sorry, I missed that. One more time?" They will naturally pause, smile, and say, "I'm heading to the park. Do you want to grab a coffee and come along?" See? It's simple, it's effective, and it keeps the conversation flowing smoothly. Category 2. Asking for the meaning of a word or phrase. This is the brave step that Elena took, and it is absolutely crucial for expanding your vocabulary in a meaningful way. There are several ways to do this. You can use a direct question. This is the clearest and simplest way. For example, what does the word mean? As in, what does the word egalitarian mean? It's direct and gets you the information you need. Or, you can soften it slightly. "I'm not familiar with the word. Could you explain it to me?" This is very polite and shows a little bit of vulnerability in a good way. Another great option is, "That's a new word for me. What's the definition of the word?" This frames your lack of knowledge as a discovery, which is a very positive way to look at it. When it comes to phrases or idioms, which are often more confusing than single words, you can use similar structures. For example, "I haven't heard that expression before." What does the idiom mean? As in, "I haven't heard that expression before." What does "bite the bullet" mean? You can also ask, What do you mean by the idiom? This focuses on the speaker's intention. Or you could even say, is that an idiom? I don't think I know that one. This shows you're thinking about the language on a deeper level. Let's do a lot of practice with this right now, because it is so important. I want you to say the questions out loud. Hearing your own voice ask the question is a critical step. Okay, I'll say a sentence with a B1 or B2 level word. Then I will pause, and I want you to ask for the meaning out loud. Are you ready? Sentence 1. The company's new policy was met with a great deal of trepidation from the employees. What's your question? Go on, say it now. You could ask, what does trepidation mean? And I would explain, it means a feeling of fear or anxiety about something that may happen. Sentence 2. After her long illness, she looked quite gaunt. Your question? Perhaps you could try, I'm not familiar with the word gaunt. Could you explain it? And I would say, it means lean and haggard, especially because of suffering, hunger, or age. Sentence 3. He's a very gregarious person. He's always the life of the party. Your turn. Ask the question. What does gregarious mean? I would reply, it means a person who is fond of company. Sociable. Sentence 4. The politician's speech was full of platitudes and empty promises. Ask me. That's a new word for me. What's the definition of platitude? I would explain, it's a remark or statement, especially one with a moral content, that has been used too often to be interesting or thoughtful. Sentence 5. Her arguments were always very cogent and well-researched. Your question? What does cogent mean? Answer, it means an argument or case that is clear, logical, and convincing. Sentence 6. The city's downtown core is full of ubiquitous coffee shops. Your question? What does ubiquitous mean? Answer, it means present, appearing, or found everywhere. Sentence 7. She had a very ephemeral beauty. Ask me. That's a new word for me, ephemeral. What does it mean? I would explain. It means lasting for a very short time. Every time you do this, you are not just learning a definition from a list. You are creating a memory. You are attaching the word to an interaction, to a specific moment in a conversation. This memory, this mini-story, will make the word stick in your mind far more effectively than rote memorization ever could. Category 3. Asking for clarification of an idea. This is a more advanced skill. Sometimes you understand every single word in a sentence, but the overall meaning, the concept, or the argument is still foggy. This is especially common when discussing abstract ideas, complex processes, or nuanced opinions. Asking for clarification shows that you are listening deeply and are committed to understanding. Here are some incredibly useful phrases. A very good general one is, I'm not sure I'm following you completely. Could you explain that in a different way? This is polite and gives the speaker a chance to rephrase. An even more powerful technique is to rephrase what you think they mean. You can use this structure. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that rephrase their point in your own words? This is fantastic for 2 reasons. First, it shows you were listening actively and trying your best to understand. Second, it gives the speaker a chance to either confirm your understanding, yes, that's exactly it, or correct you, not quite. What I actually mean is. This is one of the most effective communication tools in any language. Another great tool is asking for an example. Could you give me an example to illustrate that point? Examples make abstract ideas concrete and easy to grasp. If you're really lost, it's okay to admit it. You can say, "I'm a little bit lost here. Can you walk me through that again, perhaps more slowly?" And finally, you can target a specific part of their statement. What do you mean, exactly, when you say, and then you quote the part that is confusing you. Let's practice this with an example. Imagine your manager says, "For this project to succeed, we really need to leverage our synergistic capabilities." You understand leverage, and you understand capabilities, but synergistic capabilities sounds like corporate jargon. What would you ask? Practice it now. You could try rephrasing, "So, if I understand you correctly, you mean we should use the skills from different teams so that we work better together." Your manager would likely be very impressed and say, "Yes, exactly. That's what I mean." Or you could ask for an example. "Could you give me an example of a synergistic capability we could leverage?" This pushes for concrete details. Let's try another one. I say to you, to truly become fluent, you have to embrace ambiguity. What question comes to mind? Ambiguity is the key word here, but it's also a concept. You might understand the dictionary definition, the quality of being open to more than one interpretation. But what does it mean in the context of language learning? A great question would be, "I'm not sure I'm following. Could you give me an example of how to embrace ambiguity?" And I would answer, "Of course. It means being comfortable with not understanding every single word you hear or read. It means watching a movie and being okay with missing 20% of the dialogue, but still following the main plot. It's the opposite of panicking when you don't understand something." By asking, you didn't just learn a word, you learned a core strategy for language learning. Category 4. Asking deeper follow-up questions. This is where you transition from being a language learner to being a truly great conversation partner. These are the questions that move a conversation from a simple, transactional exchange of information to a rich, meaningful connection. These questions show that you are not just listening to the words, you are listening to the person behind the words. They show you are interested in their thoughts, feelings, and experiences. These are the questions that build friendships and professional relationships. Let's build a good toolkit for this. To understand someone's reasoning or opinion, you can ask, "That's an interesting point. Why do you think that is?" Or, "What leads you to that conclusion?" To understand their emotional experience, you can ask questions like, "How did that make you feel?" Or, "What was going through your mind when that happened?" To understand the story of an experience, you can use open-ended prompts like, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "What was that experience like for you?" To understand challenges and growth, you can ask, "What was the biggest challenge you faced during that time?" Or, "What did you learn from that experience?" Let's see this in action. Imagine a friend tells you, "I've decided to train for a marathon." A simple response would be, "Oh, cool," and the conversation might stop there. But what if you use a deeper follow-up question? You could ask, "Wow, that's a huge commitment. What inspired you to do that?" Suddenly, you've opened a door. Your friend might tell you a story about their health, about a family member, about a personal goal they've had for years. Then you can ask another one. "What's the biggest challenge you anticipate?" Or, "How are you feeling about the training process?" These questions transform a simple statement of fact into a shared exploration of motivation, dedication, and personal growth. This is how you use language to truly connect with another human being. It's not just about exchanging data. True fluency is about being able to navigate these social and emotional landscapes with grace and genuine interest. And your compass for that navigation is always your curiosity. Now, let's put all of this together with some dedicated listening practice. I am going to read 4 short, distinct passages to you. Your task is to listen like a detective, with the ears of a curious child. Your goal is to listen for words you don't know, ideas that seem unclear, or topics that you'd like to know more about. For each passage, I want you to mentally formulate, or even better, say out loud, at least 2 potential questions you could ask. Are you ready? Let's begin. Passage 1. My friend has gotten really into the minimalist lifestyle. She recently decluttered her entire apartment, getting rid of almost 70% of her possessions. She said the initial process was arduous, but the sense of freedom she feels now is profound. She claims that by curating her environment so carefully, she has more mental space for what truly matters. Okay, take a moment. What questions bubbled up for you? Did the word arduous stand out? A perfect question would be, what does arduous mean? And the answer is, involving or requiring strenuous effort, difficult and tiring. What about the word curating? You could ask, she said she was curating her environment. What does curating mean in that context? I would explain that it means to select, organize, and present something, in this case, the items in her home, very carefully. Or maybe you were more interested in the core idea. You could ask a deeper follow-up question like, that's fascinating. How did that process give her more mental space? Or, what does she consider to be the things that truly matter? Do you see how many avenues for learning and conversation can open up from just a few sentences? Passage 2. Our City Council is debating a new proposal to create more green spaces downtown. The proponents of the plan argue that it will not only improve the aesthetic appeal of the urban core, but also have significant ancillary benefits, such as improving air quality, reducing the urban heat island effect, and boosting the mental well-being of residents. However, some business owners are vehemently opposed, citing concerns about the loss of parking and potential disruptions to commerce. All right, what did you find in that one? It was a bit more formal, a bit more civic-minded. Maybe the word proponents caught your ear. Your question, what does proponents mean? The answer is a person who advocates a theory, proposal, or project. What about ancillary benefits? That's a great phrase to question. I'm not familiar with the word ancillary. What does ancillary benefits mean? The answer, it means providing necessary support to the primary activities or operation of an organization, institution, or system. In this case, it means secondary or extra benefits. And what about vehemently, or urban heat island effect? These are all fantastic vocabulary questions, but you could also ask a clarification question about the concept. I'm not sure I understand. Could you give me an example of how a park could disrupt commerce? This is a brilliant question, because it asks for a concrete example to clarify a potential conflict. Passage 3. I've been reading a book about the history of medicine, and it described the serendipitous discovery of penicillin. Alexander Fleming didn't set out to find an antibiotic. He was a bit of a messy scientist, and he returned from a vacation to find that a mold had contaminated one of his petri dishes, and that the bacteria around the mold had been destroyed. His innate curiosity led him to investigate further, rather than just throwing the ruined experiment away. Let's deconstruct this one. What words might be new? Serendipitous is a beautiful one. Your question: what does serendipitous mean? Answer: occurring or discovered by chance in a happy or beneficial way. What about contaminated or innate? Ask the question: what does contaminated mean? Made impure by exposure to or addition of a poisonous or polluting substance. What does innate curiosity mean? Inborn, natural curiosity. You could also ask a deeper question that connects to our theme today. That's so interesting. Why do you think his curiosity was more important than his messiness? Or, can you tell me more about what happened after he decided to investigate? These questions show you are making connections and are eager to learn the full story. Passage 4. My grandmother is the most resilient person I know. She has faced numerous hardships in her life, yet she never succumbs to despair. She has this quiet fortitude that is truly awe-inspiring. Whenever I'm going through a difficult time, she doesn't offer platitudes. Instead, she shares pragmatic advice rooted in her own experiences. It's incredibly grounding. Okay, our final practice passage. What did you notice? Resilient is a key word, and a great one to know. You might ask, what does it mean to be resilient? And the answer is, able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. How about fortitude or pragmatic? These are wonderful vocabulary questions. What does fortitude mean? Courage in pain or adversity. What does pragmatic mean? Dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. And you could also ask a deeper, more personal question that invites a story. That's beautiful. Can you share an example of the kind of pragmatic advice she gives? This question shows empathy and a desire to understand the relationship on a more profound level. You are not just a language learner. You are a good friend, a good conversation partner. Your journey to fluent, confident English is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a long and sometimes challenging road, but it's a road that is paved with thousands of small, individual moments of discovery. Every single question you ask is a step forward on that road. Every question is a small victory, a mini celebration of your commitment to understanding. It's a moment that reinforces your knowledge, builds your confidence, and strengthens the neural pathways in your brain. Please, I implore you, do not let those moments of confusion, those foggy instances of not knowing, fester into frustration and silence. See them for what they truly are. They are not problems. They are golden opportunities. They are invitations from the world to learn something new. In any group of language learners, I can promise you from years of experience that the best learners, the ones who make the most rapid and lasting progress, are always the ones who ask the most questions. They are the brave ones. They are the curious ones. They are the ones who understand that the goal isn't to be perfect, but to be always learning. So, to put all of this into meaningful action, I want to give you a concrete mission, a 7-day curiosity challenge. Your call to action begins right now, today. This isn't just about listening to me, it's about actively changing your habits. Day 1. The Passive Observer. Today, while you're watching a movie, a YouTube video, or a TV show in English, Your mission is to press the pause button at least once when you hear a word or a phrase you don't fully understand. I want you to say the question out loud, even if you are alone. Say, "What does that word mean?" Then, use your phone, a dictionary app, or a website to find the answer. Don't just read the definition. Write down the word, the definition, and the original sentence you heard it in. Day 2. The Sound Engineer. Your mission today is to listen to an English podcast or a song with complex lyrics. Find at least one moment where the speaker talks too fast for you, or the singer's words are unclear. Rewind it. Listen again. Then, practice saying one of our phrases out loud. "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating it?" You're not speaking to anyone, but you are training your mouth and your mind to produce the phrase automatically, without fear. Day 3. The Vocabulary Contextualizer. In any English content you consume today, an article, a book, a podcast, find one new, interesting word. Your mission is not just to look up its definition. Your mission is to then become a detective and find at least 2 other example sentences of that word being used online. This will give you a much richer understanding of its context and usage. Write all 3 sentences down. Day 4. The Idiom Hunter. Today, your goal is to actively hunt for one English idiom. It could be from a conversation you overhear, a show you watch, or a book you read. Your task is to ask the question, what does it mean to, for example, jump on the bandwagon? Then, find the meaning and, this is the important part, try to write your own original sentence using that idiom. Day 5. The Rephraser. Find a sentence in an English news article or a non-fiction book that seems a little dense or complicated. Your task is to practice asking for clarification using the rephrasing technique. Say out loud, "So, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's saying that," and then try to explain the complex idea in your own, simpler words. This is an incredibly powerful skill to practice. Day 6. The Deep Diver. The next time you have a real, even very brief conversation in English with a colleague, a language exchange partner, a friend, or even a cashier in a shop, your goal is to ask one deeper follow-up question. Not about a word, but about the person. Something simple like, "That's interesting. Why do you think so?" Or, "What was that experience like for you?" Or, "How did you get into that?" Your goal is to show genuine curiosity about them. Day 7. The Brave Participant. This is the final challenge, the culmination of your week of practice. In your next group chat, online class, or work meeting that is conducted in English, your mission is to ask one question out loud. Just one. It can be any type of question we've discussed. It could be about a word, about an idea, or simply asking someone to slow down. When you do it, I want you to take a moment afterwards to acknowledge your own courage. Celebrate that victory, because it is the biggest and most important one of all. Don't let these fleeting moments of confusion become permanent walls of frustration. See them for what they are: golden opportunities, invitations to learn. You can even start your practice right now, today, by leaving a comment below. Ask me a question. Ask me about a word from this lesson that was unclear. Share a story about a time you were afraid to ask a question. Or tell me which day of the 7-day challenge you are most excited or nervous about. I read the comments, and I would genuinely love to hear from you and continue this conversation. I'm Alex from English in Fluency, and I am so incredibly excited to watch you embrace your curiosity and grow into the confident, connected, and fluent English speaker you are truly meant to be. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your courage today. I'll see you in our next lesson.